Hiya, it's Jimmy, and today I'm talking about a book called Story of a Death Foretold by Óscar Guardiola-Rivera, who is a law professor in London but is originally from Colombia. And this book is about Salvador Allende, who was the president of Chile. He was the leader of the Chilean Socialist Party, and he was at the head of a coalition government which included other parties, including the Chilean Communist Party, which was headed by Pablo Neruda, the Nobel Prize winning poet. And I actually listened to this on audiobook, read by Danny Pardo, who is an Argentinian actor and voiceover artist. So that was quite good because I don't know Spanish and I don't know that much about South America, so it was good being able to hear everything pronounced correctly. So Salvador Allende came in, he was elected, he didn't come into power through a revolution or through guerrilla warfare like Fidel Castro did in Cuba, although Castro and Che Guevara were both admirers of Allende, having seen him give speeches in the years and decades before he became the president. And Allende was very committed to trying to bring about revolutionary changes through legalistic means. So within the existing constitution of Chile and within international law, and without using force to bring about the changes that he wanted, without using kind of the police to enforce the changes he was bringing about with violence and things like that. He was very against turning it into a dictatorship or anything like that. But about 3 years after he came to power, on September 11th, 1973, he was overthrown and killed in a bloody coup that killed quite a lot of people and caused a lot of havoc. And then Chile was under the authoritarian rule of a military junta led by a man called Pinochet for several years after that. And this book is the story of the coup and everything leading up to it and a little bit of the aftermath. So it talks a lot about the context around Allende's life, around him coming to power, his time in government, the coup, and the aftermath. So that context includes things that were happening between Chile and Cuba, the USA, the Soviet Union, which he didn't have a very good relationship with, Spain, and Francoist. There were a lot of his opposition in Chile were big supporters of Franco, the fascist dictator of Spain at the time. The copper industry, which at least at the time was a major part of the Chilean economy, the media and the media's relationships with the copper industry and the owners in industry who were often also the owners in the media, and the colonial history of South America and Chile in particular. So it goes into a lot of that broader context, and the coup only comes up about 3/4 of the way into the book, so all the action is kind of at the end of the book, and throughout the book dips into philosophy, economic ideas and context and things going on, and other bits of history, including ideas around human rights, development of ideas around human rights, and talking about even things like the Nuremberg trials and who should be held to account for the crimes of a government and which governments end up getting held to account, and things like that around, to be consistent, should we be holding governments like the American government, for instance, to the same standards that we hold, for instance, the German government of the Second World War, and other governments who are kind of examined for potential international crimes to the same standard. So there is a lot of these kind of tangents that the author takes, and for me, I quite like that because it's a really rich book. It talks of, you've got this central issue, and if you don't know loads about Salvador Allende and the history of South America and things like that, he fills in a lot of those gaps that you might not have as in terms of the context of various kinds, even the philosophical context, the legal context. So I quite like that. A lot of the reviews I've seen online have been quite critical of that and talk about how the book is kind of meandering, off topic, and it could have been half the length if it had been more focused. So depending on what kind of book you like, that might be a downside or an upside. There's sort of more content in there, but it's a bit less streamlined. But I quite like that, although it did contribute to me taking quite a long time to get through the book and finish it. I think it's a really interesting piece of history, and it's got relevance today and relevance to a lot of other parts of the world, the international aspects of it, the influence that America and the CIA had before Allende came to power, while he was in power, the role that they played in removing him from power. And I think it's relevant especially for anyone who's interested in electing a especially left-wing party or leader or president, people who might maybe are supporters of Bernie Sanders or the Labour Party in the UK, and want to bring about through democratic means real significant visionary change. This is an example of a country where that happened and some of the obstacles that came up against. And so I think it's just a really interesting bit of history that everyone should learn about, and especially if you're interested in bringing about that kind of substantial change through the means that Allende was trying to use: constitutional means, legalistic means, peaceful means. And it's a sad story with how things ended up with him, but definitely one that we can learn from in a lot of different ways. So if anyone else has a recommendation for other books about South American history, and especially kind of political economic history, then please do recommend me one in the comments. And I hope you're all staying safe, and thanks for watching.